Hi there, and welcome to the Introduction to DISC, How to Enhance Your Connections. Thank you so much for joining in. My name is Renee Kessler. It actually looks like Rena Kessler, but it's pronounced Renee Kessler. And I'm so happy to be here with you, and I hope that you'll be inspired through this process and learn something about yourself and learn something about your friends or your colleagues or your family members through this process as well. I hope to only make this about 30 to 40 minutes, so hang in there with me. I know time is precious. And I'd like you to pull out a piece of paper and a pen. We're going to do something with that in about 20 minutes or so. So to give you a little background of who I am, I was a former professor before I became a coach and speaker. And I had a delightful opportunity to take students in the backcountry. My field of expertise was at outdoor and environmental education. So I really loved spending time with the students from 3 days to 30 days out in the backcountry. And the longer the time spent in the backcountry, the more the real person actually came to life. It's easy to sort of mask over who you really are when you're just with people for a short period of time. But when the challenges come throughout an expedition, bad weather, or people are fatigued or hungry or tired, you know what we all feel like when we're hungry? We get hangry. And this was oftentimes the case. And about 3 to 7 days into a 30-day expedition is when we called that the honeymoon period. And that's when everybody's got a great smile on their face and everybody's saying please and thank you and I'm sorry and can I help you with this and oh no, you first. Was always the case until the weather got bad or until people got fatigued and tired, and then their personalities and their behaviors change and their tolerance for other people changed too. So we would call this a breakdown in expedition behavior, and this was really critical. This honeymoon period was delightful, but when other things set in, then it would sort of upset the apple cart and students' behaviors would change. And this was really critical when it became a climbing day. We made sure that people were resolving any conflicts that were happening between people or among people before they set out on a climb, because this would jeopardize the safety of the climb and actually maybe even prohibit them from getting to the summit. So if you translate that or transfer that to everyday life or even in the workplace, that when people aren't getting along, it's really hard to get to that summit. It's really hard to get to that end goal. It's difficult when you're working in a team and people aren't getting along. It takes that much longer to get to the end product. And then it takes away the enjoyment of working on that product with other people. So it's critical that communication is at its best and that people have good expedition behavior. But that's challenging when there are other people involved in other dispositions and people's backgrounds and environments, and their role models have all made an impact on that. So let's talk a little bit about the personality profile instruments that I mentioned earlier. There's a ton of them out there, and I'm just mentioning a few here. And one of them, I think, I shouldn't ever think or assume, but Myers-Briggs is a fairly well-known one across the board. And it has a combination of maybe 16 different styles with introvert, extrovert thinking and feeling involved in it. So you could end up with 60 different styles, but end up with 4 letters. Could be an extrovert and a sensing person or an introvert and a feeling person. And there's great value in that. And in fact, I used to be a facilitator for Myers-Briggs when I was a professor and loved it. And students really gained a lot from it. And it certainly has value. And it's been around for many, many years as well. Emergenetics, it's where there are colors involved, and a particular color identifies a certain personality trait. Enneagrams involves numbers, and a certain number combination identifies a certain behavior and personality. The 4 tendencies, Gretchen Rubin, and I've seen her all over the internet, and I've taken all these instruments and find value in each one of them. I learned something unique and special and different about me each time that I involve myself in one of these. And then the last one that it's fairly recent. I've never heard of it before, but I went to a TED Talk about a month ago. And the woman speaking, who was a TED Talk speaker, actually created this instrument based on her past and her history, and found that to be really revealing and interesting as well. But today we're going to talk about DISC, and I'm going to tell you about how I sort of got involved in this. I'm part of the John Maxwell team, and I went to a presentation where someone was facilitating DISC and giving an introduction to what DISC was. I never heard about it before, and this was about a year and a half ago. And as he continued to explain it, I became really absorbed in what he was saying and sort of thinking about myself and thinking about those people out there that perhaps I don't get along with as well or never really connected with as well, a certain type of personality type. And at the end, he provided an opportunity for people to take the assessment. So I did, and I was shocked. Just when I thought I had a pretty good handle of who I was and pretty good handle on, yes, I'm a good communicator, then I took the DISC and found out a lot of information that I hadn't really considered before. And most of it, I shouldn't say most of it, much of it had to do with understanding other people. Wow. And I don't recall learning that from other assessments. It wasn't just about me. It was really about understanding and in attempting to make connections with other people. Once I understood their motivations, once I understood their fears, once I understood something about their personality style. So I was hooked. And shortly after I took the assessment, then I was trained to become a facilitator. And so I've been facilitating DISC for about a year and a half and have really had a blast doing it. So this is fun for me, and I love passing this information on to other people. So what is it? What is DISC? D-I-S-C. Each one of those stands for a certain personality style. It's a personality and behavioral assessment that will empower you to better understand yourself, your family members, friends, colleagues, in a profound way. Each letter represents a particular personality, although we all have combinations of all these letters represented in our lives. So, for example, when people take the assessment, even after doing an introduction, they think, oh, you know what, maybe I don't really need to take the assessment because I think I have a pretty good idea whether I'm a D or an I or an S or a C. But let's say you do take the assessment and a certain letter or a combination of letters appear at the top. They sort of supersede all the other letters that indicate that's your primary personality behavioral style. But that's not the only letter that shows up. All the other ones show up too. They're just not primary. So each person has a combination of all these letters. So if you ended up being a D, for instance, and you met another D, doesn't mean that you're going to be bosom buddies, that you're going to really connect and relate to each other. Because each of you have combinations and different levels of each of the other letters and each of the other personalities sort of blend in there to make you unique and you special outside of everybody else. So it's a great instrument for that. And just when people think they have a pretty good sense of who they are by taking the introduction without actually taking the assessment, they are surprised at the end after they've taken the assessment because it doesn't turn out to be like who they are. Recognizing when they read through the 30 pages of information about themselves and about other people, that it really does mirror them, reflect who they are in various situations. So it's a powerful instrument. So how well do you know yourself? That's a good question to start. And, I started too thinking I know myself pretty well and I communicate and connect pretty well. I belong to a networking group here in Colorado. And one of the things that I have done in the past is given them an introduction to DISC. And I immediately asked them at the beginning, how many of you think you know yourself pretty well? All their hands raised. How many of you think that you're a really good communicator? Everyone's hands raised. And then I began to talk about DISC and identify some characteristics. And then they get a little quiet. They are saying a lot of ahas, and they didn't know that, and this is different. And And I felt the same way when I took it. And I've taken a lot of assessments and personality profiles over my career, and this just stood out to me. So, and I think just when people think they know about themselves and other people, this can be a really good inspiration to want to continue learning more about DISC. So, I thought I would put a slide up there introducing some what I call self-help books, or those people who are keenly interested in growing themselves. How to Win Friends and Influence People. I bet you recognize the title of that book. It's been around for a long time, closing in about 100 years. I think it was 1936 is when the first copyright of the book came out. And it's still considered one of the bestsellers on in bookstores. Other books that are on my bookshelf right now, Who Are You Really? Just recently joined my bookshelf. Reading People, Make People Like You in 90 Seconds. How about that one? Woo! That really appealed to me. I've had that book for quite some time. But if you're in a pinch, you need people to like you in 90 seconds, it's a good read. And the last book is Everyone Communicates and Few Connect. I love this book by John Maxwell. And it really talks about how you connect with people. In other words, we're all communicating with people. When we go to networking groups and we go to family picnics or family events or work events, people are always communicating. But in the end, how many people are actually connecting? And he really talks about, in this book, about connecting to your audiences. I'm a speaker as well, so this is valuable to me, is making a connection to the audience so that the audience actually goes away with something that is valuable to them. It's not about me speaking to them, it's about connecting with them. And I find this oftentimes at networking groups. Oftentimes at the end, after I've spoken to and communicated with a lot of people and businesses, I walk away and I think, how many people did I actually connect to and connect with? Not only exchanging business cards, but also, was there a connection? And what is vital to that connection? So John Maxwell really talks about that in the book, and I found it to be really instrumental in my process of making connections with other people and audiences. So let's talk about the 3 factors that are foundational for developing personality and behavior. And I slightly touched on them earlier, but one is heredity. You know, we can't choose our parents. We get something from it. They're in our DNA. And so they transfer their personality behaviors to the things that are in us. They're our first models of behavior when we were very, very young. And that's really profound in how we act today. And oftentimes people say, oh my gosh, I've become my parents. Well, it's a true statement, because guess what? You do own part of their personality and their behavior. In addition to our DNA and our heredity, it's also our role models before the age of 12. Now think for a moment. Who are those people in your life? Or who is that person in your life that stood out among all of them, that really resonated with you? You got along with, you admired them, you really thought they were special in your life. They became some sort of a mentor or role model to you at a very young age. And somehow you wanted to emulate them. You wanted to mirror their behavior and how they responded and interacted with other people. You spent a lot of time watching them and being around them. That's also an indication of who you are today. And then lastly, it's all those experiences and environments that you found yourself in at a young age as well. So we think about, I oftentimes ask myself this question or wonder about this. All my brothers and sisters, and I come from a family of 7, and I think, why are we all so different? I mean, didn't we grow up in the same household and eat at the same dinner table and eat the same food and come from the same parents? Yes, we did. But how we were received from our other siblings and our parents, and all those emotions that drove us at a young age, and those experiences that set us apart, in those environments that set us apart from our other siblings, really formed our personality and behavior. So collectively, heredity, role models, and experience environments really play the role in our personality and behavior. So this is where I want you to pull out the piece of paper. Pull out the piece of paper, and I want you to draw a vertical line and a horizontal line, a big cross over the front side of the paper. Okay? And then I'd like you to write at the top, trust model. And so I want you to think about trust, because trust is the foundation for really good communication. If you trust someone, if you trust your colleagues and your coworkers and your partners or your family members or your spouses, this will open up the gates to really healthy communication. I would venture to say you know that already, but this is just a really, I think, a good reminder and a model for us to sort of talk ourselves through, because it's never too late to remind people about trust and how valuable trust is. So the top left-hand quadrant, I want you to write the word arena. And I want you to put stars in this quadrant. And you can put stars around the word arena or on the peripheral of the quadrant. And underneath the word arena, I want you to write this quote: I know you know. I know you know. And essentially that means what I know about you, you know about yourself too. And what I know about myself, you know as well. So it's sort of like an open book. It's open communication. It's where it's comfortable, it feels safe, and you have the greatest trust in another human being, your coworker, again, your partners, your spouses, who's ever in your life. A trust model is really critical to develop really good open communication. That's where you want to be. That is the quadrant that has the greatest stars. When we move over to the next quadrant at the top, write the words blind spots. And under blind spots, I want you to write, you know, I don't know. You know, I don't know. And this is an example of, there are things that people out there know about me that I don't know about myself. And do you know people out there that you know something about, but they don't know? They don't recognize the particular behavior or how they speak, or things that drive you crazy, or things that really become blind spots for open communication. So for example, I'll use a husband and wife situation where the husband comes home after a full day of work and his wife goes to him and says, honey, the kids have really been complaining that they never see you. They really want to spend time with you, and you don't spend any time with them. And he gets a little disappointed and upset and says, oh my goodness, I have worked so many hours and so much to provide for the family, and the kids, for a good education, and to adhere to their needs and their wants. And now you're telling me I don't spend enough time with them. He didn't recognize that. He's looking at it from the standpoint of providing for the family. But what they really need is quality time, and he hasn't given it to them. So his wife is open enough to say to him, this is what happens. He's listening, and they eventually move into the arena where there's open communication. I have people, and I have experienced people in my life who either finish my sentences, or maybe they interrupt halfway through, or I have a sister who I adore, who oftentimes ends her sentences with the word whatever. And finally, I had to tell her, do you recognize this is what you say at the end of your sentences? Not every sentence, but a lot of sentences. And I'm essentially helping her so that when she's communicating with other people, she's not saying that all the time. Or when people say the word like all the time, right? That's a hard word to try to eliminate from your vocabulary, especially for young people. So if we can gently and openly talk to other people about their blind spots with each other, then we mosey on into the arena, and that's where we want to be. But let's talk about mask, which is in the bottom left-hand corner. Masks. And write the word mask, and under mask, I want you to write, I know you don't know. So in other words, I know things about me that you don't know about me. They're kind of like hidden agendas, hidden secrets. And the best example that I can have with this is when we are first on a date, the first date that we have with someone. And I can venture to say that everybody's related to that to some degree, that you give your best foot forward. You tell people who you are, what you've done, where you've traveled, what your job is like, what successes that you have. You really sort of put yourself the best pieces of who you are. But that all the other pieces that might not be so pleasurable or that the other person might wonder about are not talked about, are sort of hidden. And that's typical on a date. You want to give your best impression to someone else. But if that continues over time, then that really jeopardizes the trust that someone has in you, because they can eventually sense there's something else there. There's something hidden. Or maybe they're surprised at it later on. Do they know that you've been married 5 times? Do they know that you have anger issues? Do they know that you have substance abuse issues? Maybe they don't, because the mask hides it. It's this barrier of communication between you and the other person. So what we try to do is to feel trusted enough and trusting enough to another person to be able to tear down those masks so that we can get into the arena, where again is where we want to be. And then potential is the bottom right-hand corner in the quadrant. Write the word potential and write the words, I don't know and you don't know. I don't know and you don't know. That means we have no idea what the future is going to hold. We don't have a crystal ball. But if we have good communication and open communication and good foundational trust to feed the open communication, then whatever happens in the unknown in the future, we should be able to respond to that in a healthy way. So in the future, a death could occur, a natural disaster, a divorce, or something really positive, a marriage, a new baby into the family. How does one respond to that? If you don't have open communication and you've got these blind spots and masks that are lingering around, how you respond to a potential, particularly if it's a challenging potential, such as a natural disaster or a death of some sort, then that's really going to compromise your trust in another human being. And it's going to be tough to get into the arena. So potential, if all is going well in arena, things should go really smoothly under potential. Okay, I hope that makes sense. That it was really meaningful to me when I first went through this process. Okay, on the back side of that piece of paper, I want you to draw another cross, vertical line and horizontal line. And at the top of that, I want you to write the words outgoing, fast-paced, and active. And at the bottom of that vertical line, I want you to write the word reserved, slow-paced, and passive. Here we go. Now we're really starting to talk about the D, I, S, and C. So where do you belong in that cross? Do you belong in the more outgoing, fast-paced, active, or do you see yourself more reserved, slow-paced, passive? Are you a person who can't wait to get up in the morning and start your day and move it pretty quickly and ready to go, and you get in the car and you speed down the highway, you walk really fast, you like being active throughout the day, that energizes you in some way? Or are you more reserved, slow-paced, and passive? Like you spend time getting up in the morning and your day unfolds as very methodically and maybe at a slower pace, and you're not too excitable, you're ready you're listening and you're observing and you're watching and you're making sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. If that's you, then put a star there. If you're more outgoing and fast-paced and active, then put a star there. Then on the horizontal lines, I want you to write the word task on the left-hand side of that horizontal line and people on the right-hand side of that horizontal line. And I want you to think about your day. So for instance, when you're laying in bed in the morning and you're about to start your day, you're thinking about what your day looks like. And you've got your things to do list and you've got all these tasks that you want to do. When you think about your day, are you thinking about the tasks that you want to accomplish? Are you thinking about the joy you'll have when you can check out all those items on your things to do list? That it's really meaningful to you to try to get through many of the tasks of the day so that you feel more relaxed at the end of the day? Or are you more people oriented, where when you're laying in bed, you're thinking about the day, you're thinking about who's going to be at those meetings that you're having? And those meetings are only once a month. So you only see some of these people once a month, but you're excited because you've got this particular meeting and those particular people are going to show up and you're looking forward to catching up with them. Or maybe you think about your day that you're having lunch with Susie and you talk about her wedding and how important that was, and you're looking forward to that. So if you see yourself more tasky, and the same sort of thing happens at the end of the day when you're laying in bed and you're thinking and processing your day. What are you thinking about? You're thinking about, oh, I'm so glad I got all those items done on my things to do list. Or you think about, oh, it was a joy to hang out with these people and go for a run with somebody or have lunch with a friend or spend time with people in a meeting that you're looking forward to. If you find yourself more tasky, then go ahead and put a star there. And if you're more people oriented, put a star there. So this is what it looks like. When you see a quadrant, it's going to look something like this. Your D, here we go. Your D and I and S and C look like this. Your D and the I are more active. Your C and the S are more passive, slower paced. But the S and the I are more people oriented, and the I can't situate this in front of the camera, sorry. Here we go. The D and the C are more task oriented. So the D is more direct and fast-paced and very tasky, and the I is more people-oriented and also likes to get some tasks done. The C and the S, again, more slow-paced and methodical in how they do it. But the C is more tasky and the S is more people-oriented. So think about that in terms of these quadrants. So a little bit of insight in each one of these letters. D's tend to be more decisive, more direct, more demanding. Who comes to mind in your life that might be something like that? And oftentimes you find leaders in D's that tend to be leaders or in charge of a group or have a position of leadership. I's tend to be more influencing. Remember, they're more people-oriented, yet task-oriented, inspiring and impulsive and spontaneous. They like having a good time, and they tend to be more inspirational and influencing, versus the S and the C, which S's are great members to have in a team, steady, loyal, like harmony. They're dependable, reliable, and loyal to the team and to their family and to their friendship. And the C's are much more compliant, conscientious, and correct. Remember, the S's and the C's are more slower paced, but the C is more tasky and the S is more people-oriented. So C's like to take the time to pull things together and do it right the first time. So it takes time for them to do it that way. So that gives you a little bit of an insight in each one of those letters, but then it's helping to recognize who other people's characteristics are. And then also recognizing what was revealing is, their motivations and their drives and their fears, which actually puts it in a whole different plane than just their personality. It helps to better appreciate, I think, each personality, and it helps you to warm to a personality that you thought you could never warm up to. So identifying your disc will allow you to recognize your strengths and limitations, overcome your shortcomings and clear the path for personal and professional growth. Understand how others are different. My favorite part is how others are different and how to work with each personality. That's a big star for me. That's where I learned the most about. Build a stronger team that communicates, appreciates the style of others, and works well together. Learn effective strategies, yes, because again, you're going to get 30 pages chock full of information about how to enhance your communication if you're working with a different personality style, how you can communicate with them, how you can improve your communication with them. It gives you all kinds of strategies to do that. And also in ways to handle conflict and personality clashes. Develop yourself and others to be their best. Love that. Yeah. So who benefits from DISC? I'm a coach, a business coach, so I give this instrument to each one of my clients because we continually use this as we're working through projects and challenges in their work life and things that they want to pursue and successes they want to achieve. And DISC really comes into play throughout this process. Spouses and partners, my goodness, this is really good. I have worked with engaged couples and newlyweds who are about to get married and they want to set the tone right off the bat to really understand each other and appreciate each other. And couples who have been together to, if they're coming across a conflict or they're being challenged in some way. Coworkers and clients, absolutely. Teams of people, groups of people that you're working with on a consistent basis. Family members, can't eliminate those. And then placing people in certain roles and positions. So for instance, if you're in the process of hiring a bookkeeper, what kind of personality style might be best for that? And perhaps you pass along the DISC to different people who are interviewing for a job, and this is done. I've never done it, but I know that people do use this, and it's permissible to do that with DISC. And it gives them some insight whether they would be the right person for that particular. If they're a hostess, what kind of personality might be suited best for being a hostess? And then you benefit mostly from the DISC. Yeah. So how does this work? Well, first I send you the assessment. You'll click on the link on the website, and if you're going to follow through with doing the assessment is sent to you. It takes about 10 to 12 minutes to take the assessment. And this is what one of the many things that sets this instrument apart from others is that it doesn't take a very long time to do it. It's not complicated, it's not hard to take, and it's not lengthy. Whereas something like the Myers-Briggs, again, I used to be a facilitator for Myers-Briggs, so I know that there are 100 questions that you have to take, respond to, and then I score what those are, and then I give them back. And it takes some time. It took me about a couple of days to get the assessment back to students. But with the DISC, once you take the assessment, it's highly reliable and valid. You get the results immediately, and I get the results immediately as well. So then once we both get the results, you and I will connect and review the assessment. It takes about 45 minutes or so to go through and explain what the components, the vital components of the 30 pages will be. There's some graphs in there that sometimes can be a little complicated to understand. So I'll help you sort of navigate your way through the assessment and the review of that. And then you'll begin paying attention, applying DISC. It's very applicable, very pragmatic and practical to use. And you can begin to use that with your team members or people at work or people that you find you have relationships with. So here's the deal, the DISC deal. Individually today, it's $99, includes the assessment and 45 minutes review on your assessment. Typically, a full assessment, the briefing, the assessment, and the debriefing is $299. So that's a deal. And then if you're interested in having your team or a group of people to take the DISC and then do some scenarios with that, I do half day and full day projects and seminars with teams and groups. If that's something that interests you, because we do scenarios and we do engagements throughout the seminar that become really valuable to you and that's things that you can relate to and actually use beyond DISC. That's going to be really helpful. So we can talk about that. And if you have questions on anything at this point, schedule a free call with me to discuss. This, if you're interested in having a team or a group do the DISC assessment, or you're just wondering whether this is going to be important enough for you or valuable enough for you. I can help you navigate that decision as well. So why sign up? Why not? It's a great deal for one reason. It's a really good deal. And you'll begin using what you have learned about DISC immediately. You will enhance your understanding of yourself and others in exponential ways. And again, 30 pages of information. And it's not boring information because it's about you. And it's about other people. And it's about improving and growing and becoming better at who you are in your process of growing. The better you can communicate, the better you know yourself, the more successful you will be in your career and in life. And so you can't go wrong at all with any personality assessment because it's just, inches toward, your growth. But DISC has really been insightful to me and very valuable. And I trust it'll be for you as well. Dramatically improve the way in which you communicate and connect with others. So please contact me. And my email and phone number are there. Again, my name is Renee Kessler. I'm thrilled to be here. My background is in outdoor and environmental education, and I spend a lot of time in the outdoors, hiking and climbing, and I never tire of that. But I will tell you, based on my experience in the past, is that I have learned so much about other people by being in environments where it's been challenging and stressful and uniquely different than just your everyday comfortable environment. It stretches people, and it's important that people are stretched. And when people are pursuing a summit in your life, whatever that summit will be, you're going to be challenged. And if you're not challenged, it's not really a summit. So, and in the process of being challenged, and if you're working with other people, DISC will help you iron out those communication challenges and those personality clashes that you might have. So again, free call with me if you have some questions about groups or if you simply have questions about the instrument. I'm happy to help you. Feel free to reach out to me. Thank you so much. Best wishes to you, and I hope to hear from you. Thank you.